My girlfriend took me to her family reunion. Everyone was warm, welcoming, a little too curious. Then someone said, "Wait, you're not the one from last year." I laughed it off until I saw him, her ex, smiling like he never left. That's when the stories started unraveling, and so did I. She said she wanted me to meet her whole family, said it like it meant something, like it was a milestone. "Reunion weekend," Nia told me, her voice bright. "Out at my uncle's lake house. Everyone's going to love you." I believed her. I packed like I was walking into something serious. New sneakers, 2 collared shirts. Even brought a bottle of wine I knew her mom would approve of, the kind I couldn't pronounce but she once mentioned during a dinner rant about wines with backbone. She held my hand the whole drive there. Played DJ, laughed when I made up harmonies, kissed my cheek and said, "You're such a good sport." I didn't know what that meant yet, but I would. We pulled into the gravel driveway just after 3 p.m. Big house, bigger deck. A dozen folding chairs already out, music floating through the pines and someone flipping burgers on a grill. People hugged her as soon as we got out of the car, and when she introduced me, "This is Eli." They smiled, nodded, said, "Nice to meet you," but with a flicker of something else in their eyes. Recognition, disappointment, I couldn't name it, but I felt it. Still, I brushed it off until about 2 hours in, we were on the deck. Her cousin Miles handed me a beer and said, "Ballsy move showing up again." I blinked. "What?" He laughed. "I'm kidding, man." But he wasn't. 10 minutes later, I met her mom, Deborah, sharp bob, sharper eyes. She hugged Nia, then looked me up and down and said, "Oh, you're not who I thought was coming." Then smiled, like that explained it. I kept glancing at Nia, waiting for her to notice. Waiting for her to step in. She didn't. We mingled, played a lawn game I didn't understand, ate too many sliders. Then I saw him at the grill, wearing a t-shirt that hugged his arms a little too perfectly, cracking jokes with her uncles like he'd grown up here. Tall, confident, familiar. Tarek, she hadn't said he'd be here. Hadn't mentioned his name in months. But he was here flipping burgers, handing her aunt a lemonade, laughing like this weekend had his name on it. And no one was acting like he was ex anything. Nia brushed past him and said, "Don't burn them this time." He bumped her hip with his, "You like them a little burned." She laughed, they both laughed. And I stood there with my plastic cup and my sinking stomach, watching the scene like I was outside of it. Because I didn't get introduced to him that day. Didn't get a "this is Eli" moment. It was like she was hoping I wouldn't notice. Like he was just part of the scenery. That night, after everyone settled around a fire pit, I finally asked her. We were standing by the back door, just the two of us. I said, "Was Tarek supposed to be here?" She smiled, too fast. "You're overthinking again, he's family." Family? That's what she said, like he was a cousin. Like he hadn't once lived in her apartment, slept in her bed. I wanted to believe her, wanted to file it away under awkward but harmless. So I nodded, tried to let it go. Until the next evening, when I caught them at the dock. It wasn't anything scandalous, they weren't kissing. They were just close, standing too still, talking too softly. His hand on the railing beside hers, not touching but almost. She tilted her head the way she does when she's listening intimately. And he was smiling like someone who never had to leave. I stood at the top of the hill, watching the water glow orange behind them. Watching the curve of her shoulder lean just slightly in his direction. Watching the version of her that felt like it belonged to someone else. And suddenly, I didn't feel like the boyfriend anymore. I felt like the plus one. To a story I hadn't been told the whole of. Tarek, that's his name. I heard it 4 times the next morning before I ever heard my own. "Tarek, grab another bag of ice." "Tarek, can you help Uncle Jay with the canopy?" "Tarek, remember when you jumped in the lake fully dressed?" He was everywhere. Grilling with her uncles, setting the table with her mom, fixing her cousin's speaker with a screwdriver he just happened to have in his car. He called her dad Pops. And Pops called him Champ. Everyone talked to him like he belonged. Like I was the guest, like I was the question mark. And Nia, she was brilliant at avoidance. Brushed past the tension like it was pollen in the air, told me I looked good, kissed my cheek, laughed at my jokes. But never said, "That's my boyfriend." Not once. I didn't even meet Tarek, not officially, until the second day. It happened around the fire pit. She came up behind me, put her hand on my shoulder and said, "Eli, this is Tarek." Tarek, Eli. Like it was a formality. Like I hadn't been watching him fit too perfectly into the puzzle I thought we were building together. He smiled, extended his hand, firm shake, too firm. Said, "Good to meet you, man." Like he meant it, like he hadn't been here before, like he didn't already know the ending to a story I still thought we were writing. That night, I waited until we were alone. She was brushing her teeth in the guest room. I leaned against the doorway. Is he supposed to be here? I asked again. She didn't even pause, spit, rinsed, dabbed her mouth with a towel, then turned to me. You're overthinking again. He's family. That phrase again, flat, polished, scripted, like she'd said it before, maybe to someone else. I nodded slowly. Right. She leaned up, kissed my cheek. Relax, baby, you're the one I brought. But I didn't feel chosen. I felt placed. That night, after everyone passed out drunk or sunburnt, I walked down to the dock, to breathe, to think, to get the buzz of confusion out of my ears, and I saw them again, Nia and Tarek. She was sitting on the edge. Feet in the water. He was standing behind her, hand on the post above her head, not touching, but close, too close. She laughed at something he whispered, and even though I couldn't hear it, I could feel it. The kind of laugh you don't fake. The kind of closeness that doesn't come back on accident. She looked like a version of herself I hadn't met yet. Or maybe one I wasn't supposed to. I walked back without saying anything, and lay in bed beside her like I wasn't already unraveling. The worst part wasn't that they were close. It was that no one looked surprised, not when she touched his arm during breakfast, not when he made her laugh so hard she leaned into him, full body. Not even when, during a late-night card game, she sat in his lap for a second and called it a joke. Everyone laughed, everyone. Aunt Sonia said, these two. Always causing trouble. Cousin Miles nudged me and said, you good man, like I was the tense one. Her mom didn't even blink, just passed the chips, and I sat there with a smile that didn't reach my eyes, holding a solo cup and my breath, watching them like I'd wandered into a movie halfway through and somehow ended up on the wrong side of the screen, because they were performing, but not for me, for each other, for the family, and I. I was the awkward extra standing in a scene I didn't realize wasn't mine. I kept waiting for someone to pull me aside. To say, sorry, this is weird, she should have told you. No one did, because no one thought this was weird. Because maybe, just maybe, I wasn't the only one who'd been here like this before. Maybe this was just what Nia did. She brought her now into her then and expected it not to combust. But something in me already had, quietly. Like a slow split down the middle, and no one noticed, because they weren't looking at me. They were still looking at them. I asked her again, waited until the cards were away and the porch lights were off. She was brushing sand from her legs, smiling like nothing was wrong. And I said steady, what's going on with you and Tarek? She got quiet, not confused, not hurt, just quiet. Then she said, Tarek and I have history. I told you that. I stared at her, you said X past tense. She tucked her hair behind her ear, avoided my eyes. It's complicated. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because complicated is not what you call someone you brought to meet your grandmother while still calling someone else baby under your breath. I'd heard it, that morning. She thought I wasn't around. He made a joke, something stupid, and she said it without thinking, stop, babe. Then silence, then laughter, then the charade resumed, but I remembered. And now, standing there in the guest room that smelled like someone else's cologne, I finally said what had been building in my chest for 2 days. Complicated is a math problem. She blinked, I stepped closer. What you're doing is a performance. Her mouth opened, nothing came out because she didn't have a defense, only scripts, and I'd stopped clapping. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I couldn't, because I wouldn't. I lay there beside her while she breathed evenly, calmly, like she hadn't lied to every person she introduced me to, like she hadn't asked me to step into a spotlight meant for someone else. The ceiling fan spun above us like a countdown. At sunrise, I got dressed, walked downstairs, found her Aunt Sonia by the coffee pot, stirring cream into her mug like it was muscle memory. She looked at me over the rim of her glasses. You're up early. I nodded, didn't sleep much. She didn't ask why, didn't need to. Then, after a pause, she said, you're the second guy she's brought here in 3 years. She took a sip. And the second one who thought he was the only one. Just like that, no venom, no drama, just truth. I stared at her. She didn't flinch, just walked past me and said, don't take it personal. Nia's always been slippery with love. I didn't reply, because what do you say when the truth confirms the ache? When a stranger hands you the missing piece and it fits too perfectly, inside me something snapped. Not loud, not angry. Just final, like a window that clicks shut in your chest. I packed my bag, neatly, quietly. Every folded shirt felt like another piece of the lie being undone, but I didn't leave, not yet. Because if I was going to be humiliated in public, if I had to sit through smirks and whispered babe s and card games where I was the punchline, Then I was going to end it in public too. No secrets, no texts. No polite exit through the back porch. I wasn't the fool anymore. And I wasn't giving her the dignity of pretending this could still be salvaged behind closed doors. So I zipped the bag, set it by the door, and waited. Waited while her cousins made breakfast. Waited while Tarek laughed with her dad over scrambled eggs. Waited while Nia tied her hair up and kissed me on the cheek like everything was still sweet. She thought I was staying quiet. She thought silence meant surrender, but I wasn't swallowing it this time. I was holding it, sharpening it, and when the toast came later that evening, when her mom said, "Eli, would you do the honors? Your family now." I smiled and stood up. Because if they were going to remember anything from this weekend, it was going to be what I said next. Dinner was outside, long folding tables stretched across the deck, string lights swaying above us like lazy fireflies, cousins laughing. Plates clinking, smoke drifting up from the grill like nothing in the world was off. Deborah, Nia's mom, tapped her glass. "Let's hear from Eli," she said. "He's part of the family now." I stood slowly. Nia touched my arm, smiled like she was proud, like I was hers. I raised my glass, cleared my throat, looked down the long table at all the people who had smiled at me like they meant it, while watching her wrap her past and present into one long lie. "I'd like to thank everyone for inviting me," I said. My voice was steady. A few people raised their glasses. "But," I continued, "I know I wasn't the only one Nia invited this year." The table froze, forks hovered midair. Nia's hand slipped off my arm. And Tarek, he smirked, didn't flinch, like he'd been waiting for me to finally show up in my own story. I stared at him, then back at her, and the silence stretched so tight it could have snapped. But I wasn't done, not yet, because if this was a performance, it was curtain call. Then I said, "Since I'm already here, I'd love to know who else thought we were exclusive." I turned, looked straight at Tarek. His smirk faded. But he didn't speak, didn't move, didn't even blink. So I turned to Nia, still calm, still standing. She let out a shaky laugh, light, fake, too fast. "Oh my God, Eli," she said, reaching for my hand like this was a game I'd misunderstood. I stepped back and said, "If I'm overthinking, then say it." The words hung in the air. Say I was the only one. She looked around at her family, at the faces watching, and then back at me, but she didn't say it, not once, not even close. And in that moment, with half-full glasses, blinking string lights, and 2 summers' worth of lies balancing on her lips, I knew everything I needed to know. I set my glass down and sat back in my chair, not defeated, just done. Because silence speaks, and her said everything. I left the next morning, didn't wait for breakfast, didn't make small talk, didn't look for Nia. I just got up, showered, zipped my bag, and walked out of that house like it had never been mine to enter. No goodbye, no scene, no second chances hanging in the air, but I left something behind. A note, 4 words scribbled in black ink resting on her pillow. "You deserve each other." Not a threat, not an insult, just the truth. I heard later through someone's cousin's Instagram story that Tarek left 2 hours after I did. Alone, which made sense, because whatever they thought they were holding on to, whatever performance they'd been rehearsing behind my back, it didn't survive the spotlight. Lies don't, they dry up when you stop pretending it's raining, and I had finally stepped out from under the storm. A week later, Nia texted, "You could have handled that privately." No apology, no regret, just control. Still trying to direct the narrative like it was a dinner party I'd ruined. I stared at the message, then typed back, "You could have lived it privately." I waited 3 dots, then nothing, so I added one more. "You chose the audience." I just gave them a show. Then I blocked her. Simple, quiet, final, no argument, no follow-up. She wanted the lie to stay pretty, but I don't dress wounds with lace. I don't stay quiet just so someone else can stay comfortable. After that, I booked a trip. One way, mountains, no service, because the best way to reclaim peace is to leave before they rewrite you into another chapter you didn't agree to. Tarek DM'd me last night, out of nowhere, no context, no greeting, just, "She did the same thing to me once. I thought I was the main character too." I stared at the message for a long time, not because I didn't know what to say, but because I didn't need to say anything at all. He wasn't looking for a fight, he was trying to close a loop. A shared silence between people who'd both been dressed up and placed in her story like props. I didn't reply, just let it sit there, unread, because what was there to say? We'd both been cast, both delivered lines we didn't write, both thought we were it, until we saw the other one in the wings. And now I know it wasn't love. It was theater, and I'm not auditioning anymore. When people ask why it ended, I just say because I stopped clapping. They laugh or blink or lean in like I've said something poetic, but it's not poetry, it's a boundary. Because when someone turns love into a stage, when they hand out scripts and lighting cues, but forget to tell you you're not the only one cast, you can either stay and perform, or you can walk out mid-scene, and I did. I left the costume, left the audience, left the girl who couldn't pick a role without double booking the spotlight. Now when people ask if I'd ever go back, to her, to that house, to the version of me that kept smiling through confusion, I say, not even if the show's free, because the ticket cost too much, and I've already seen how it ends.
Thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. One love.